Good evening. I'm Christie Max Williams, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the May edition of this, the 24th year of the Arts Café Mystic. And oh, has there ever been anywhere a finer week of spring than we have enjoyed in our sweet little corner of the world? Have you noticed how the cherry and apple blossoms have clung to the trees through the long, cool days of fragrant weather? How the daffodils and forsythia have persisted in their yellow sparks? How patiently the dogwoods and the hydrangeas wait their turn? If all this has somehow evaded your attention, you should be removed to the village green and flogged there with shreds of pages torn from those volumes of Chaucer and Shakespeare that invoke the darling buds and the lusty month of May. And never mind that there is no village green in Mystic. We'll take you to the library instead. For those of you new to the Arts Café, if you're wondering what's happening to you, we are an independent nonprofit, and our mission is to present the nation's most celebrated poets and writers, along with New England's best musicians, in programs that lift your spirits while deepening your minds. And if we have a little fun along the way, heaven help you. Before we proceed, I must ask you to take this one of these out of your pocket or purse. That's right. And holding it before you thusly, to curse it for its tyrannical control over your lives. Or at least turn the damn thing off. Okay, on with our show. Our opening voice tonight is the Connecticut-based spoken word poet, Abiose Cole. Mr. Cole is also an animal rights blacktivist, teacher, hip-hop artist, producer, and recording engineer. He began writing at age 9 and has read his poetry seemingly everywhere. So it's high time he should be here at the Arts Café. Indeed, he has performed notably at Yale, Connecticut College, UC Berkeley, which is my alma mater. He has headlined at the Vegan World Summit, and the Green Earth Poets Cafe in Brooklyn, with the Connecticut Slam team, appropriately called Verbal Slap. Isn't that good? Verbal Slap. He has competed as a slam poet in the National Poetry Slam in Denver, and at the Nuyorican Cafe in New York, where I too have competed, and at the Lizard Lounge in Boston. He's also taught poetry to students ranging from middle school kids to adults, including residencies at Yale. His first book, I Am Not Food, is due out next year. Maybe we'll have him back then. What I like about his poetry and his performance is the mix of verbal wit and impassioned intelligence. But I'm eager for you to see for yourself. So won't you please join me in welcoming Abiose Cole.
So the goal this evening is to get through 5 poems in 15 minutes. So I'm going to ask that you hold applause to the end. If you feel moved by any of the pieces throughout the performance, please feel free to express yourself, whether it be a laugh, a clap, a snap, but I won't be pausing for any applause in between the pieces. First piece, Black Sambo. You want some shuck with your jive? Just cut the check. I put a small price on my self-respect. I got that blackness that washes off when you make it rain. The pain of your perceived supremacy has traumatized me, so I do and say whatever you ask of me. Yes, massa. Whether it be endorsing a bigot for presidency or sitting on TV preaching about post-racial society, it's all the same to me. Just cut the check. I could be that rapper in your deck, talking about women like it wasn't the woman that gave me breath or the one that glorifies the life that I regret, perpetuating lies that equate black lives with criminal minds while you redefine crime as having a complexion like mine so you can steal away our time. Shoot, I won't even feel no type of way. It's fine. Just cut the check. You'll see me smile, lips redder than bread, skin toasted by the sun. They say I take after Jemima, auntie from the man's half of the gene pool. My blackness is only watered down when it seems cool, so I can be your tool, your voice to give credence to racist and ignorant fools. Blacks and whites call me coon. Black folks to my face. Most whites wait for me to leave the room, but it don't bother me none. I just throw a little metal on my shoes and tap dance right around the truth of my self-hatred. No matter how blatant or flagrant, acceptance in society depends on my inferiority complexes, complicated by complexion and colorism, where the fairness of your face determines the fairness of this race you run and how many paces ahead you get to start before this race even begins. They say I got a better chance to win if my race is only black in the face or underneath the laces of my shoes, but white on my tongue. Chances are even better if I pretend my self-hatred is fun, glamorized when I play by the rules, ostracized if my black fist rises or if I politicize my pedestal. So I don't like Kaepernicks, John Carlos's and Tommy Smith's, man, they make me sick. But I love me some Ray Lewis and some Raven Simone. Shoot, I love my own when they show symptoms of Stockholm Syndrome and placate to your approval. If only I could have an honorary white man card that I could hang from my rear view or attach to my driver's license so police officers would know not to be frightened. I's one of the good black folks. One of those stay in your place Negroes, granted celebrity status so white folks won't need no more minstrel shows. If you ask me to, I'd even tie the noose around my own black neck. Just make sure you cut the check. Black Sambo. So the next piece I'm gonna do is called Third Grade Class. Article in a local newspaper. Chief Stephen Adamowski, newly elected chief of schools, acted more like the chief of police when he said, and I quote, "You could draw a straight line between reading achievement in the 3rd grade, the rate of graduation in the 12th grade, and the rate of incarceration, and you could predict every step based solely on who is reading in the 3rd grade. The 3rd grade, like the 8-year-old. Imagine me, 8 years old, playing basketball up the street, exploring forests, talking to trees, memorizing times tables, reading Aesop's fables because my parents knew the ones labeled as bad get separated first. Yes, they get special education. And according to Chief Adamowski, that will lead to their incarceration. Their diagnosis will read ADHD. Their prescription will be Ritalin. Doctor becomes the pusher man. Teachers, COs, parents, POs, because when the kids go home, it's more like parole. Students get pushed through the pipeline from school to prison until the word criminal replaces their name in a job interview. In prison, school. We were taught to walk the hallways in straight lines between cell blocks, classroom units, to follow the CO's orders, teachers' instructions, to sit quietly in our cells behind our desks, surrounded by fluorescent lights and cement, praying that we don't lose recess. If one of the cellmates, classmates, tries a prison break to walk the hallways out of line, they get moved to higher level security, detention. Our parents gave us commissary lunch money, and if a fight breaks out, teachers send us to solitary confinement, in school suspension. Conditioned early. You see, privatized prisons have a vested interest in making this continue. And so the numbers get skewed. And instead of investing in intervention, as in putting money in schools, they translate poor reading into meaning more profits for the money pool. They swim in it like transatlantic waters and rise up dripping with blood. Those who survive the shells in the streets can have some sheets with their cells, leaving themselves behind more prisons and more crime than any two nations combined. Because we learned how to turn dime bags into time. So COs can work overtime. Nurses can work shifts. Lawyers can work cases. Judges can take trips, then brag about convictions to move up in politics. Human economics translates poor reading into dollar signs. They literally monetized a third grader's mind. So happy I learned to read. Because in this cold world, there's just ice and cold shoulders. Justice got frozen over by the DOJ and stockbrokers who say if you can't read in the third grade, get used to watching life fade from behind gray walls because that's all you'll ever see. It's crazy. But that illiterate third grader could have been me. Third grade class. So the next piece I'm going to do is called Extra Cheese. Wait, you don't even eat cheese? They ask, seeming almost offended, staring at me with this look of indignation like I just said I was a white nationalist. No, I don't eat cheese. But no one had to die for cheese. Visibly perplexed. They know that I'm a vegan, that I respect life, not seeing a non-human animal as worthy of torture and death just because it wasn't born human. And they can connect with that on some level. Maybe not to the point that they end their unhealthy, barbaric practices of feeding on the flesh of innocents multiple times on a daily basis, but they do seem to understand why eating flesh poses an ethical dilemma for me. Maybe they think of their own pets they'd never eat, or maybe there's just something innate in most people that connects with pain and suffering, knowing that pain is a Siamese twin adjoined to the heart of life, even during slavery. Slavers saw any with melanin as 3/5 human to justify how they treated men, women, and children. They knew it was wrong to treat people like that, but they'd been treating animals like that for millennia. So if black people were animals, we could be bought, bred, sold, and abused. Our bodies no longer our bodies because we belong to a real person. And only a white, hetero, cisgender man is a real person. Domesticated animals were the first slaves. The fact that natives didn't see land or animals as property meant that they were animal-like savages that needed to be civilized, and if they didn't like the civil lies, colonists could justify genocide in the name of progress. Slavery is a practice perfected through millennia of rape for reproduction. Cows are bred on rape racks. Talk about a rape culture. It isn't frowned on when the person being raped isn't seen as a person. People are okay with bestiality if it means a Good Friday night pizza. So long as the cheese isn't flavored by oppression and assault, human arrogance turns life into property and ignores the pleas of a rape victim separated from her calf, the male calf, that will starve to death because someone wants his mother's milk and someone else wants veal for dinner, somewhere, at some point. But a mother's cries are never lost in translation. They ring loudly in the ears of her masters. No one wonders why so many slaughterhouse workers tend to be violent sociopaths. It's not a surprise if their career path would leave them emotionally scarred. It's not a surprise if you can't tolerate lactose either. I mean, think about it. Who, besides humans, is dumb enough to drink milk from another species and then be so arrogant as to look at me as weird for not participating in the largest, most normalized gang rape in history? Tell me, how many would you personally rape, forcibly impregnate, torture, and kill for some pizza with extra cheese? So the next piece is called Perfect Word. It's one of my favorites. You'll notice more of a hip-hop vibe to it. It's actually written in 2 pieces from 1998 to 2000, and then converted to a spoken word piece and put together. From before my genesis, the mission was to be prepared for the time of Exodus, strive as perfectionists, reading through the Torah, touch the promised land like Joshua, while judges for the roots of Ruth, seed of Africa like Samuel, a king of chronicles, spitting truth like Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, like Job, I'll make your skin fester, with poetic words like Psalms through Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, including a song to the queen like Solomon, Makeda, converse with Jah like Isaiah, Jeremiah, lament with Ezekiel, meditate in fires with Daniel, and dens with wild animals, leaving Babylonia dismantled, with with Hosea burning evil temples, because Jah is the only one essential. Like Joel, I try to talk to my people about the God so great, he makes all things equal. Under he the one King of Kings, trying to save us like Amos, speaking against the greediness at the next man's expense like Obadiah, trying to make the Edomites repent for the sake of Zion and Israel, tired of the belly of the beast like Jonah's whale. Just like Micah said, Jah will make them fail, bringing mayhem like Nahum. Stop praising Jah like Habakkuk and watch the beast get shook. Scared of the ordeals of Zechariah's book when Israelites unite, just like Haggarites, and Zephaniah talks about the coming of Christ with Malachi, Haile Selassie. But the perfect word don't exist in written form. It's most easily expressed by the sound of the planets formed, the sound of the sun rays, the sound of the thunderstorm, the sound of a hurricane, the sound of a baby born. That sound is Christ-like, but that's a term used by men, so the title, it isn't quite right. It's kind of like the sound in silence. That's something hard to find, like the peace within the violence. How many wars for the perfect word? Truth is, you can't define it. It doesn't have a language. The letters, they're meaningless. It lies in the natural form of the all that exists. It's the life energy, the supreme entity beyond any measure, any sound memory, a sound chemistry, the mixture of vibrations to form density and then form everything. It's beyond all knowledge and anything you ever heard. It can't be said. We only describe the perfect word. They say Yahweh, Yah, Allah, Jah, Brahma, Elohim, Ptah, Amen, Ra, Adonai, Yah, El Shaddai, Heru, Yeshua. But the perfect word is a lifestyle. It's a natural system found by studying the planet in its natural rhythm. The scholars seek it all day and it missed them. The illiterate could find it easily if they know it lives in them. The scriptures try to pass it on. But humans write the word, so human lies get passed along. A lot of scholars get it wrong. The perfect word was created by a speechless tongue. It breathes life to a universe with breathless lungs. We try to define it and then war for definition. Or we'll live the perfect word and get bored from repetition. Keep your eyes open, but keep your mouth closed. It's simple complexity. Past every word that you know, the perfect word can't be spoken. It's most easily shown by the life that you live when the perfect word is known, but only as its reflection. Can never know perfection, but keep your mind focused. Move in the right direction. The perfect word is love. Perfect word. So the final piece is called Don't Hate Me Because I'm Beautiful. That's the last piece I'll do. Don't hate me because I'm beautiful. Don't be mad because my skin reminds you of chains and whips. Be mad because you're conditioned to see my chains and whips as some drugs I flip. Don't be bitter because of the lemonade I made from your strange fruit, or because I rearranged your language to fit into a culture you broke. It's not my English that is broken. It only looks that way because I'm trying to keep myself from falling apart. So I have a little swagger when I speak from the heart. Don't hate me because I make pain look so good that you want to taste it and call yourself by the derogatory terms that you've used to describe me. Don't be jealous because my skin absorbs the light that turns your skin red, or because my brown is so colorful that you started to call it black to erase my spectrum, not realizing that black birthed the universe. The stars can only shine against a black canvas and are eventually swallowed by a black hole, going back to the blackness that created them. Don't be angry because of the venom you gave me that made me the black mamba, or because the storms you rained down on me made Mayweather and Ali with princes so royal the rain had to fall in majestic shades of magenta, and a king who did it so good he had to call it bad. Don't be mad because I birthed every style of music that this country ever had, or because I got so used to running from what you saying that now I bolt and break every record, that I got so used to flipping through your hoops that I became Dominique Dawes. Don't be mad when I remind you of your flaws. Don't be offended when I feel the need to tell you that I matter, or when I'm not surprised that you constantly forget. Eric couldn't garner a breath. Michael took bullets because he was brown, and you let Freddie turn gray in the back of a van, programmed to hate me because I'm beautiful. Please, don't hate me because I'm beautiful. Thank you.
Abiose Cole, ladies and gentlemen. I think right now we'd all agree that abiose is one of the perfect words. Thank you. This gives me a chance also to thank Bank Square Books for continuing to partner with the Arts Café. Our corner of Connecticut is lucky to have so hip and friendly a book dealer. I also want to express our special thanks to the Mystic Arts Center for welcoming the Arts Café again. Our community is lucky to have such a resource, and we are grateful to feel at home here. By the way, during intermission, I would urge you to take a look at the galleries around you. This particular room presents the 107th annual exhibition of the Connecticut Academy of Fine Arts. And that is to say that this juried show presents the best of the best artists in Connecticut. Also be sure to check out the lower gallery, which features a 3-person show, including the wonderful paintings of Sarah Stifler Lucas, who's a regular member of our audience. Now, for a musical treat. On this very stage, the Arts Café has featured many flavors of folk, pop, rock, metric ton of jazz, American standards, some classical stuff, even opera. And to your everlasting open-minded credit, you've enjoyed, or at least tolerated, most of it. But tonight we have a pure treat for you in the collective voice of Connecticut College's all-male a cappella group, the award-winning Cocoa Bow. Cool name, isn't it? Abiose, cool name, Cocoa Bow, huh? The young men of Cocoa Bow, who come from all over the country, consider themselves not just a group of singers, but an extended family of brothers. Though none of them looks more than 20, Cocoa Bow is celebrating its 40th anniversary of making music, and they've just completed recording their 9th album. But the real treat is in catching them live and in person, in all of their masculine pulchritude, finger-popping charm, and harmonic glory. So hold on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen, in welcoming Cocoa Bow.
Well, there's a light coming through the window, and it shines down on the street. And there's some guys standing on the corner, singing that good old harmony. And as I rise up from the shadows, and my voice carries through the street, I'm alive and I'm proud to be just singing that good old harmony. Yeah, I'm singing that soul to soul, that brother to brother, that a cappella, and that sounds good to me. Yeah, I'm singing that soul to soul, that brother to brother, oh, that a cappella, and that sounds good to me.
I just want it understood. Boys rock boogie to the neighborhood, and I'm standing under the lights. All right, I'm singing, yeah. I'm singing that good old acapella. It sounds so sweet. I'm alive and I'm proud to be just singing that good old harmony. I'm singing that soul to soul, that brother to brother, oh, that acapella. It sounds good to me. I'm singing that soul to soul, that brother to brother, oh, that acapella. It sounds good to me.
Good evening, everyone. We are the Connecticut College Cocoa Bow. We're Connecticut College's only all-male a cappella group. First of all, thank you guys for having us here tonight. This year is actually our 40th anniversary of our founding. And we have a new album coming out soon. So, be on the lookout.
And when I turn out the lights, say goodbye to another night, I'm gonna rest my weary head, be putting my bones away to bed. Oh, I'm gonna get on my knees and pray to the Lord to give me just one more day. Oh Lord, hear my plea, it means so much to me. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
that was good old acapella. It's kind of our theme song. This next one is All My Loving by the Beatles. And this one's soloed by Will Logan, who is a sophomore at Connecticut College. Some fun facts for you. There's going to be a quiz later, so make sure you guys study up.
And I'll kiss you. Oh, I miss you. Remember, I'll always be true. And while I'm away, I'll write home every day. I'll send all my loving to you. I'll send that I'm kissing those lips I am missing, and hope that my dream will come true. While I'm away, I'll ride home every day. I'll send all my loving to you. All my loving I'll send to you. All my loving, darling, I'll kiss you tomorrow. I'll miss you. Remember, I'll always be true when I'm away. I'll ride home every day. Yeah, I'll send all my love. All my loving, I'll send to you. All my love, darling, I'll be true. All my loving, I will send to you.
And next on the hand set list, trying to be more sustainable. Thinking outside of the box here. So this next one is Tupelo Honey by Van Morrison, and it is soloed by our very own Alex Madzorian, who is a junior.
That's two questions.
Well, you can take all the tea in China, put it in a big brown bag for me, sail right around the seven oceans, dip it right into the deep blue sea. She's as sweet as Tupelo honey. She's an angel of the first degree. She's as sweet as Tupelo honey. Just like honey, baby, from the bee. There's a rose pressed inside the Bible that she reads on her balcony.
angel. Oh, she knows she's alright. She's alright. She's an angel. Oh, she knows she's alright. She's alright. She's an angel. Oh, she knows she's alright. She's alright. She's an angel. She's an angel. She's an angel.
She's as sweet as Tupelo honey. She's an angel of the first degree. She's as sweet as Tupelo honey.
She give me love,
Just like honey, baby, from honey.
Alright, so those are some of the classics. And now we're gonna bring it to a little more of a modern day song, or one that's come out in the last few years. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with country music at all. I don't know much of it, but I do like Zac Brown Band. I saw them at Fenway, it was great. But anyways, this is Loving You Easy by Zac Brown Band, and it's soloed by Untitled. And he is our social media manager. And do you have any fun facts you want to share, Untitled?
I have. I'm
Say it's great.
say that I'm from Turkey and I'm a sophomore. So, yeah.
And he's doing some sort of smart computer science thing at Yale this
Yes.
summer. I don't know anything about it. I'm a film major. Which is great, by the way. All right.
Every morning when you come downstairs, there's a mess, but I don't care. Makeup on, shining so bright. My old sweatshirt never feels so right. Dancing around to the radio, humming the words that you don't know. I'm finding an angel off my list, thinking they don't get no better than this. You make loving you easy. You make loving you all I wanna do. Every little smile and every single touch reminds me just how much it all makes loving you easy. Wrapped around me late at night. Pillow talk by candlelight. Slow this down to make it at last. Best things fly by so fast. You make loving you easy. You make loving you all I wanna do. Every little smile and every single touch reminds me just how much you all
So we have two more for you guys. So thank you so much for listening. So this one is "Make You Feel My Love." I always get this confused. So the last person, we arranged it off of Adele's version, but I think she got it from Billy Joel, who may or may not have gotten it from Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan was the starting one. So.
I feel like Bob Dylan wrote everything. That's
Yeah. Ooh, he's written all of it.
yeah. But cool. But anyway, so this is soloed by Charlie Gold, who is our only senior here right now. So he's leaving us in just like a week, which is kind of sad, but we've had a great time with him.
Way to bring the mood down.
Good for one more? Hanging in there? All right, sweet. So this is probably going to close out our set. This is I Want to Hold Your Hand by the Beatles. This is soloed by Jermaine Doris, who is a junior. And
There's nothing fun about him.
Any fun facts, Jermaine?
Got a really cool internship this summer doing arts advocacy for Americans for the Arts in Washington, D.C.
We observe with pleasure the announcement that Frank Bedard has won this year's Pulitzer Prize for Poetry. Many of you will remember Frank's riveting reading here at the Arts Café a couple of years back. Frank is the 10th Pulitzer Prize winner we've had the honor to present to you. Not bad, huh? We congratulate him. Finally, we want to announce that in September, the Arts Café will return to start its 25th year of presenting inspiring words and music. We intend to celebrate, so please join us. On with the show. In my lifetime, which I confess amazes me by growing longer and longer, in my lifetime, I feel safe in saying that no new American poet has burst more powerfully onto the literary scene than Ocean Vuong with his debut book of poems, Night Sky with Exit Wounds, which was published a couple years ago. Indeed, Night Sky with Exit Wounds went on to win a boatload of the highest honors, a partial list, and I do mean a partial list, includes England's T.S. Eliot Prize, which is often called the most prestigious prize for poetry, the Whiting Award, which honors the most promising emerging writers, and the Forward Prize for the best first collection of poems. Night Sky with Exit Wounds was also a New York Times top 10 book. And Foreign Policy magazine selected Mr. Vuong as a 2016 leading global thinker at 26 years old. Mr. Vuong has also been featured on NPR's All Things Considered, which is where I first encountered him, and PBS's NewsHour, and in the New Yorker, and in Teen Vogue. It's true. The poet also has a remarkable personal history. He was born on a rice farm outside Saigon. He is Vietnamese American. His grandfather was a Michigan farm boy who joined the Navy and ended up in Vietnam, where he fell in love with a Vietnamese farm girl who gave birth to the poet's mother and aunts. When Saigon fell, the family was torn apart, and eventually the Vietnamese government expelled the infant Vuong and 6 relatives for being of mixed race. For a year, they lived in a refugee camp in the Philippines. Then, when he was 2 years old, he had the good sense to emigrate the family to the U.S. Mr. Vuong's family settled in Hartford eventually, where he grew up and where shortly after the family's arrival, his father vanished. I report this because it is one of the great and universal themes of his poetry. Some of his best poems grapple with the absence of a father, which is also tangled up in the family's war experience. War and family. This young poet is fearless in claiming history as one of his rightful domains of concern. The other great theme of Night Sky with Exit Wounds is the coming of age of an outsider. Mr. Vuong is the first, think about this, the first literate person in his family, but he struggled with dyslexia, only learning to read when he was 11. He reports that he writes slowly and sees words as objects, indeed. Think about that in the context of the profession he's chosen. His learning disability was not his only hardship. In an interview, Mr. Vuong has remarked that, quote, as a slight, queer, yellow boy, it was easy to be picked on. The poetic voice that Mr. Vuong has developed to tell his story is muscular, strange, and urgent, like no other. I might add that the look of his poems on the page is also like no other. It may be that in Ocean Vuong, we are privileged to witness a great new poet. So won't you please join me in welcoming Ocean Vuong.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Is it a good volume? Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for the curators, Christie and his crew for making this such a hub of art. The last time I was in this area I must have been 8 or 9, going to the seaport on a school trip. And that little boy never imagined he would be reading poems here again. But I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to be sharing this microphone with a wonderful poet and singers alike. So thank you so much for having me. I'll read a little bit from the book. Like Christie said, a lot of this collection navigates ideas of fatherhood, both mythological and real. And this first poem is in the voice of Telemachus, who of course was Odysseus' son in the Odyssey. Telemachus. Like any good son, I pull my father out of the water, drag him by his hair through white sand, his knuckles carving a trail the waves rush in to erase. Because the city beyond the shore is no longer where we left it. Because the bombed cathedral is now a cathedral of trees. I kneel beside him to see how far I might sink. Do you know who I am, Ba? But the answer never comes. The answer is the bullet hole in his back, brimming with seawater. He is so still, I think he could be anyone's father. Found the way a green bottle might appear at a boy's feet, containing a year he has never touched. I touch his ears. No use. I turn him over to face it. The cathedral in his sea-black eyes. The face not mine, but one I will wear to kiss all my lovers goodnight. The way I seal my father's lips with my own and begin the faithful work of drowning. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This next poem, back in 2011 on April 27th, an elderly gay couple, Michael Humphrey and Clayton Capshaw, was murdered in Dallas, Texas, inside their home. And they died by immolation, and they burned alive in the house in a hate crime. And this poem is written in the voice of one of those men to his beloved. The title borrows from Dante's Inferno, where in the seventh circle of hell, the sodomites were punished by a rain of fire. Seventh circle of earth. As if my finger tracing your collarbone behind closed doors was enough to erase myself, to forget we built this house knowing it won't last. How does anyone stop regret without cutting off his hands? Another torch streams through the kitchen window. Another errant dove. And it's funny, I always knew I'd be warmest beside my man. But don't laugh. Understand me. when I say I burn best when crowned with your scent. That earth sweat and old spice I seek out each night the days refuse me. Our faces blackening now in the photographs along the wall. Don't laugh. Just tell me the story again. Of the sparrows who flew from falling Rome. Their blazed wings, how ruin nested inside each thimbled throat and made it sing until the notes threaded to this smoke rising from your nostrils. Speak until your voice is nothing but the crackle of charred bones. But don't laugh when these walls collapse and only sparks, not sparrows, fly out. When they come to sift through these cinders and pluck my tongue, this fisted rose, charcoaled and choked from your gone mouth, each black petal blasted with what's left of our laughter. Laughter ashed to air, to honey, to baby, darling, look how happy we are to be no one and still American. Thank you. This next short little poem is called Detonation. And there's parentheses inside the word nation. There's a joke that ends with, huh? It's the bomb saying, here is your father. Now here is your father inside your lungs. Look how lighter the earth is afterward. To even write the word father is to carve a portion of the day out of a bomb-bright page. There's enough light to drown in, but never enough to enter the bones and stay. Don't stay here, he said, my boy broken by the names of flowers. Don't cry anymore. So I ran into the night, my shadow growing toward my father. Thank you. I should have named this book Fathers and Sons, but Turgenev beat me to it. Growing up in Hartford, I worked for a while along the Connecticut River Valley, working tobacco. Many people don't realize we grow tobacco in Connecticut, but we did. We still do in some parts. But Hartford was interesting because it was an urban space, but right across the river you had farms almost right away. And I encountered a whole different culture of hunting. You know, so all my friends would go hunting, and I kind of just followed along just to see what it's about. And I always sympathize with the deer for some reason. So this poem is about that. The smallest measure. Behind the fallen oak, the Winchester rattles in a boy's early hands. His old man's copper beard grazes his ear. Go ahead, he says. She's all yours. Heavy with summer, I am the doe whose one hoof cocks like a question ready to open roots. And like any God-forsaken thing, I want nothing more than my breath to lift this snout, carved from centuries of hunger, toward the next low peach bruising in the season's clutch. Go ahead, the old man's voice, thicker now. Drive her home. But the boy is crying into the carcass of a tree, cheeks smeared with snot and chipped bark. Once I came near enough to a man to smell a woman's scent in his quiet praying, as some will do before raising their weapons closer to the sky. But through the grained mist that makes this morning's minutes, this smallest measure of distance, I see two arms unhinging the rifle from the boy's grip, its metallic shine sharpened through wet leaves. I see the rifle coming down, then gone. I see an orange cap touching an orange cap. No, a man bending over his son, the way the hunted for centuries must bend over its own reflection to drink. Thank you. Two more poems. This little poem owes its title to a New York poet, Frank O'Hara. In one of his poems called Katie, he says, "Someday I'll love Frank O'Hara." And I thought it was such a tender and courageous thing to say. So in the same vein, I wrote a poem called "Someday I'll Love Ocean Vuong." Ocean, don't be afraid. The end of the road is so far ahead. It is already behind us. Don't worry. Your father is only your father until one of you forgets. Like how the spine won't remember its wings, no matter how many times our knees touch the pavement. Ocean, are you listening? The most beautiful part of your body is wherever your mother's shadow falls. Here's the house with childhood whittled down to a single red tripwire. Don't worry. Just call it horizon, and you'll never reach it. Here's today. Jump. I promise it's not a lifeboat. Here's the man whose arms are wide enough to gather your leaving. And hear the moment just after the lights go out, when you can still see the faint torch between between his legs. How you use it again and again to find your own hands. You asked for a second chance and are given a mouth to empty out of. Don't be afraid. The gunfire is only the sound of people trying to live a little longer and failing. Ocean, ocean, get up. The most beautiful part of your body is where it's headed. And remember, loneliness is still time spent with the world. Here's the room with everyone in it. Your dead friends passing through you like wind through a wind chime. Here's a desk with the gimp leg and a brick to make it last. Yes, here's a room so warm and blood close. I swear you will wake and mistake these walls for skin. Thank you. Thank you so much again for having me. I'll close with this longer piece. It serves as a sort of keystone in my forthcoming novel. I'm a poet at heart, so when I decided to write a novel, I knew I had to sneak a poem in there. It's ultimately a meditation on American masculinity and its struggles. Trevor, rusted pickup and no license. Trevor, 16, blue jeans streaked with deer blood. Trevor, too fast and not enough. Trevor waving his John Deere cap from the driveway as you ride by on your squeaky Schwinn. Trevor, freshman girl, then tossed her panties in the lake for fun, for summer, for your hands were wet, and Trevor's a name like an engine starting up in the night, who snuck out to meet a boy like you, yellow and barely there. Trevor going 60 through his daddy's wheat field, who jams all his fries into a Whopper and chews with both feet on the gas, your eyes closed in the passenger, the wheat, a yellow confetti, 3 freckles on his nose, 3 periods to a boy sentence. Trevor, Burger King over McDonald's, 'cause the smell of the smoke on the beef makes it real. Trevor Bucktooth clicking on his inhaler as he breathed, eyes shut. Trevor who says, I like sunflowers best, they go so high. Trevor with the scar like a comma on his neck, syntax of what next, what next, what next. Imagine going so high, he says, and still opening that big. Trevor loading the shotgun 2 red shells at a time. It's kind of like being brave, I think, he says. Like you got this big old head full of seeds and no arms to defend yourself. His hard, lean arms aimed in the rain. He touches the trigger's black tongue, and you swear you taste his finger in your mouth as it pulls. Trevor, pointing at the one-winged sparrow thrashing in black dirt, and takes it for something new, something smoldering like a word, like a Trevor who knocked on your window at 3 in the morning, who you thought was smiling until you saw the blade held over his mouth. I made this for you, he said, the knife suddenly in your hand. Trevor, later on your steps in the gray dawn, his face face in his arms. I don't wanna, he said, his panting, his shaking hair, the blur of it. Please tell me I am not, he said, through the sound of his knuckles as he popped them like the word but, and you take a step back. Please tell me I am not, he said, I am not a Am I, are you? Trevor the hunter, Trevor the carnivore, the redneck, not a pansy, shotgunner, sharpshooter, not fruit or fairy, Trevor meat eater, but not veal, never veal. That never again, he says, after his daddy told him the story when he was 7 at the table, veal roasted with rosemary, how they were made, how the difference between veal and beef is the children. The veal are the children of cows, are calves. They are locked in boxes the size of themselves, a body box like a coffin, but alive like a home. The children, the veal, they stand very still because tenderness depends on how little the world touches you. To stay tender, the weight of your life cannot lean on your bones. We love eating what's soft, his father said, looking dead into Trevor's eyes. Trevor, who would never eat a child. Trevor, the child with the scar on his neck, like a comma you now put your mouth to, that violet hook holding 2 complete thoughts, 2 complete bodies without subjects, only verbs. When you say Trevor, you mean the action, the pine-stuck thumb on the Bic lighter, the sound of his boots on the Chevy's sun-bleached hood, the wet, live thing dragged into the truck bed behind him. Your Trevor, your brunette but blonde-dusted arms, man pulling you into the truck. When you say Trevor, you mean you are the hunted, a hurt he can't refuse, because that's something, baby, that's real, and you wanted to be real, to be swallowed by what drowns you, only to surface brimming at the mouth, which is kissing, which is nothing if you forget. His tongue in your throat, Trevor speaks for you. He speaks and you darken. A flashlight going out in his hands, so he knocks you in the head to keep the bright on. He turns you this way and that to find his path through the dark woods, the dark words, which have limits, like bodies, like the calf waiting in its coffin house. No window, but a slot for oxygen, pink nose pressed to the autumn night, inhaling the bleach stench of cut grass. The tar and gravel road, coarse sweetness of leaves in a bonfire, the minutes, the distance, the earthly manure of his mother, a field away, clover, sassafras, Douglas fir, Scottish myrtle, the boy, the motor oil, the body it fills up, and your thirst overflows what holds it, and your ruin, you thought it would nourish him, that he would feast on it and grow into a beast you could hide in, but every box will be opened in time, in language. The line broken like Trevor, who stared too long into your face, saying, "Where am I? Where am I?" Because by then there was blood in your mouth. By then the truck was totaled into a dust oak. Smoke from the hood. Trevor, vodka-breathed and skull-thin, said stay, said just stay some more as the sun slid into the trees. You should stay here, he says, and the windows reddened like someone seeing through shut eyes. Trevor, who texted you after 2 months of silence, writing please instead of PLZ. Trevor, who was running from home, who was, quote, getting out, soaked Levi's, eye busted again from his daddy's veal-made haymaker, who ran away to the park because where else when you're 16? who you found in the rain under the metal slide shaped like a hippopotamus, whose icy boots you took off and covered one by one each dirt-cold toe with your mouth, the way your mother used to do when you were small and shivering, because he was shivering your Trevor, your all-American beef, but no veal, your John Deere, jade vein in his jaw, stilled lightning you trace with your teeth, because he tasted like the river, and maybe you were one wing away from sinking, because the calf waits in its cage so calmly to be veal, because you remembered, and memory is a second chance. Both of you lying beneath the slide, 2 commas with no words at last to keep you apart. You who crawled from the wreck of summer like sons leaving their mothers' bodies. A calf in a box waiting, a box tighter than a womb. The rain coming down, its hammers on the metal like an engine revving up. The night standing in violet air, a calf shuffling inside, hoofs soft as erasers, the bell on its neck ringing and ringing, the shadow of a man growing up to it, the man with his keys, the commas of doors, your head on Trevor's chest, the calf being led by a string, how it stops to inhale, nose pulsing with dizzying sassafras, Trevor asleep beside you, steady breaths, rain, warmth welling through his plaid shirt like steam issuing from the calf's flanks as you listen to the bell across the star-flooded field, the sound shining like a knife, the sound buried deep in Trevor's chest, and you listen, that ringing, you listen like an animal learning how to speak. Thank you.
Ocean Vuong, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Ocean, for coming to Mystic and gracing us with your poems. Thanks also to Coco Bo, wherever they are. And thanks also to Abiose Cole. For those of you who would like to take Ocean Vuong home tonight, let me suggest instead that you purchase a copy of Night Sky with Exit Wounds, which he would be glad to sign for you. Our final thanks, as always, is to you, our audience. We do it for you. Thank you so much. Good night.